I moved abroad for the Peace Corps. I had to come back really quickly. I was evacuated. I had to come back to the States, had to kind of reconfigure my life and figure that out.
What is up, everybody? We have another episode of the best MBA podcast in the world, Get to Be School. This is your host, Drex, and I hope you are doing well. Thank you for tuning in. You could be listening to anything else, and you're here with us, and that just means so much. Thank you. I need to give a quick shout out before we go any further. Past few episodes have been, as you may have noticed if you're watching on YouTube, these intros have been recorded somewhere else. I am once again in my neighbor's apartment. So shout out Zach and Aubrey Harris. Thanks, guys. Your kitchen table continues to serve me well after my little ones have already gone to sleep. They're off vacationing. Who knows where they are right now? They're in Paris. They're in Italy. They're somewhere. We don't know. They pop in when they want to, and we're grateful when we see them. But they're having too much fun right now with this break in between terms. We are also about to have our own fun. My little brother gets married this week, so we're gonna fly out to Utah, go spend some time with family. Could not be more excited for him and his sweet fiance. Love her to pieces and so happy to have another sister in the family. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a great week. We're going to stay in Utah through Christmas, spend it with family. With a lot of the fun that comes in December, especially for business school, it's also a very stressful time. I hope that a lot of you were getting acceptance emails and acceptance phone calls. If you haven't, and if you're looking at that round 2, please reach out if there's anything I can do on my end to help. There are coaches standing by for those last minute edits, those last minute pushes. It's a trying time. It is very stressful, and I hope things are panning out for you. I'm confident that they will. The episode this week is phenomenal. Carolyn Schafer is a classmate of mine. We hadn't really talked before this podcast, though. She just reached out and she was like, hey, you and I both know the same people. They've told me I should come on the podcast, and I'd love to come on. I love that. It was a phenomenal conversation, and it's just more proof that these great conversations happen when there are people making these connections. So follow Carolyn's example, and if you know anyone who should be on the podcast, or if you should be on the podcast, hit me up. Please send me a message on LinkedIn, text me, email, whatever. Very easy to find. And I'm grateful that Carolyn would do so, because it was, again, a phenomenal conversation. If there's anything that I can do for you on my end, please let me know. Please keep shooting this to people that you think it would help, either because they're applying, they're thinking about it, or if they're just curious to know a little bit more about business school. I just really appreciate when people are sharing this podcast. So thank you. I think that's all I have on my end. So before I say any more and before I spend any more time at Zach and Aubrey's kitchen table, let's get to the good part now with Carolyn Schafer. Carolyn, let's just dig in. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for having me.
No, I'm excited to dig in here because we have yet again a very unique background and story. Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Carolyn Schafer. I started my career in global health research. So right after my undergrad, I went to an all-female liberal arts college. Right after that, I got my master's in public health and global health and epidemiology. Joined the Peace Corps in Burkina Faso. That was a story. The Peace Corps is a 27-month commitment, and we were evacuated from Burkina Faso because of increased security concerns. So I was literally escorted out of the country in a caravan surrounded by gendarmes. Yeah.
Wow. Did that feel excessive, or were you scared?
I mean, they made it seem like it should be scary, but obviously when I was in the country, I didn't ever feel scared. So, I think they obviously have some military intelligence that they did not share with us.
You would win every single 2 truths and a lie game with that one.
Yeah, I guess I never thought of that. Yeah. So that was kind of the kickoff to my global health journey. After that, I took a research fellowship with 2 small nonprofits in Malawi, which is a Southeast African country. I had a great experience there. And then after that, I kind of got what I considered my dream job for my 20s, my early 20s. It was what I wanted to achieve. And I became a research project manager for Boston College. And we were focused on youth mental health in former child soldiers and their peers and families in Sierra Leone.
Wow. Yeah. How, just double click into that one. How was that?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. So that was kind of my first experience working on National Institute of Mental Health funded research. So National Institute of Health funds research all over the country through universities, through institutions. And it's usually like a 5-year study worth a couple $1 million. And I was the project manager of the study. So I was working with, I had a local counterpart, a Sierra Leonean, and then I had a Sierra Leonean research team that would go into the field and collect data. And then I kind of just made sure that they have everything that they need. I relied heavily on them for culture navigation and kind of like let them lead that, but just making sure that they had the resources. And, I was kind of the liaison between Boston College in the United States and the team on the ground in Sierra Leone. So I was based in Freetown, Sierra Leone for about 8 months of that. And I worked for them for 2.5 years, but for 8 months I was based in Sierra Leone. And then I had to come back and I worked remotely from the States because of COVID. Yeah. So I was like managing from here, but still managing the team there and trying to like sort through that. And I had an amazing team in like the team that I worked with in Sierra Leone was amazing. Like I still remember them. They were such a, like some of the most supportive and like go-getting people that I've ever worked with. I felt like that was the first like team that I managed. And I was so lucky to manage them. So it was great.
And this passion that takes you from Malawi to Sierra Leone, have you always just felt very concerned or driven towards working in health?
I remember from a young age, like I wanted to be a brain surgeon actually. Like one time for Halloween, I was literally dressed up as a brain surgeon and my mom got a brain from like the market and put it in a Tupperware for me. And it's so funny is like, because the night before I'm like, oh, I have to like come up with a brain. So I like tried to make one with like macaroni and like ketchup and mustard. And then my mom, I like forgot it that I like to go to elementary school for my Halloween costume. My mom's like, oh, I'll bring it to you. And she literally brought me a brain.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
Your mom's awesome.
No,
I would
really
never do that for my child.
Yeah, that's the whole other thing. So I remember, from a really young age wanting to be involved in health. And then in undergrad, I wasn't really sure I wanted to go to medical school, but I didn't feel like I was completely ready coming out of undergrad. So I had a professor like suggest like, hey, you should look at epidemiology. And actually in undergrad, I had also studied abroad in South Africa. So I feel like that was, I didn't know anybody who had ever traveled to Africa or anything like that. So I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I just went and like I didn't know anybody else from my school going. And I was like exhilarated by it.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is so cool. I'm doing this on my own. I learned so much about myself. And I was just like introduced to a whole new world, really. Like I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much for me to learn. I feel like a lot of it was like intrinsic motivation towards the medical field and wanting to help. And public health ended up being a great place for me to kind of fuel both of those fires, like wanting a large scale impact and working in the medical field. And then also like, to be quite honest, like working and living abroad and seeking these global opportunities. A lot of it was like, I kind of feel like it was selfish too, because I wanted those experiences. I was choosing to keep moving and taking these positions because I wanted to grow as a person. So I think that's like an important thing that I had to come to terms with, because there is like a lot of ethical considerations in global health and with Western countries helping emerging markets and things like that. So I grapple with that. And, I just had to come to terms that like I was doing it also for my own growth.
Those are heavy considerations that few have to reckon with. And I admire your inwardness, your ability to look inward and really challenge yourself. That's beyond what I deal with.
Thanks.
Big leap here, but big leap. Here we go. How does that bring us to Kellogg with Malawi, Sierra Leone, Chicago?
So it was kind of like I moved abroad for the Peace Corps. I had to come back really quickly. I was evacuated. Like I had to come back to the States, had to kind of reconfigure my life and figure that out. I went to Malawi, great experience. It was a fellowship, only there for a year, came back to the States, moved to Sierra Leone. I was expecting, okay, this is going to be great. 2 years, cut short because of COVID. So it was a lot of back and forth. I feel like I was like, okay, I have this global experience. I don't have any domestic healthcare experience, health systems experience. So let me like turn the other way and like just round out my experience, keep gaining more. And so I sought out a position, a research project manager again. I got a position at Northwestern School of Medicine in the Institute of Public Health and Medicine. And I worked for the director at the time of the Center for Health Services and Outcomes Research. And she did like health systems research. We looked at insurance, ACOs, and things like that, accountable care organizations. So it was great just for me to kind of learn how to navigate our system and what makes it different. Obviously, it's super complex. Quickly, after I was in that research project manager position, it was kind of like, like a lateral move from my position with Boston College. The idea of a PhD was always in the back of my head because I really liked public health research, but I never like really took the step to like get myself to do that. I feel like, I wanted to make sure that it was going to be worth it for me. And like in the end, I decided like, I don't think I want to go that route, but I always knew that I was going to get another degree. I was lucky enough to be promoted pretty quickly at Northwestern. And so that's in the position that I am at now. I am the center administrator for the Center for Health Services and Outcomes Research. So I like facilitate that, like all the research is happening and things like that. And I get to work with all kinds of research staff members. I work with people who work on disabilities, ophthalmologists, neurologists, surgeons. I'm the business manager. But, kind of moving into that role, I was like, well, we have the best business school like across the street. So I work downtown in Streeterville too. That's where the medical campus is. And I was like, I should just like look into that and kind of see like if that would make sense for me. And something about my MPH that I kind of like frame it as like my master's in public health kind of taught me how to think with a public health lens. So I like view the world like I'm thinking about social determinants of health. I'm thinking about race and gender and zip code and all these things that help contribute or deter from people's health. I was like, okay, I have this public health lens, but I want to keep moving up. I'm very ambitious. And so what can I do to expedite that? And I started looking into getting my MBA. It just like felt right. Like I started working in finances with my current position as an administrator and HR and all those things. And I was like, yeah, this kind of feels like this would be a great next step for me to round up my experience and continue to like move up and have like I just want to keep having like as much of an impact as I can. So I started looking into Kellogg, and some of the things that really, really interested me about Kellogg was their focus on like a global experience, global business. As you know, that's like something that we rate classes on, like, do they bring in a global perspective? Yeah. So I know that that's important to Kellogg. Right. The other thing about Kellogg was the focus on social impact. Obviously, that's like right up my alley. It's just like looking at public health or all these different things that are important to me, but from like a business lens. And so, I had this in my mind, like, okay, I have this public health lens that like my MPH taught me how to think through. I feel like this MBA would teach me how to think about the world in a different place in a complementary way that like I will be able to move in different spaces and access different spaces than I would without it. Yeah, it just made sense. And I applied and I got in and it's been great. Like it was definitely the right move. So,
I mean, I'm not an AdCom, but that seems like the most perfect fit imaginable. Can you imagine if they didn't let you in? That'd be crazy.
I know. No, luckily, I mean, I was nervous.
Oh, were you?
Oh, 100%. I mean,
Sure,
like, looking back now, like I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been. My resume is like, it doesn't even have the United States on it. Like most of it. So being at Northwestern, like did not guarantee me a spot to get in. I was nervous. I was like, they have no, I don't have any business background. I don't know anything about economics.
That's a great call out. Like logical next step, perhaps, but automatic shoe in, no. So right. Great call out. Let's go to your MBA experience. A few questions. First, how much time do you put into actual classwork and actual like homework? How are you doing that juggle with your very demanding administrator role?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it has been a struggle. It's been an adjustment. I mean, I got my first graduate degree a decade ago. I graduated undergrad in 2015, and then I got my MPH in 2017. So it is so different going back to school as an adult. In undergrad and my first grad degree, it was kind of like I was playing the school game. I knew how to study. I knew how to take tests well. I knew what I needed to know. Right. I still know those things in Kellogg, but it's not my focus. My focus is more so like understanding, thinking through the cases, applying it back to the experiences I've had or things that I'm working through at work now, hearing others' perspectives. And I think like that's how I'm learning as an adult versus like just making sure that I'm studying to get an A on the test. So, that's been a difference that I've noticed. I really want to dive into all the material. You know what I mean? Like right now I'm in 2 classes that like, I feel like are my bread and butter. Like this is why I came to Kellogg. I'm in strategic challenges for emerging markets and I'm a board scholar for the Capital Board Governance for Nonprofit Organizations. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's great. So this is like, that's like my bread and butter. So I'm like, I want to do extra readings. We just learned about the gas in Russia and like how there was an investor and it led to the Magnitsky Act and all this stuff. And like, now I'm reading a book about it because like, I just want to know everything. You know what I mean? So I feel like I'm very engaged in the material. So I feel like that because I'm so engaged at like spending a lot of time with it. And it has been a struggle like with work, but luckily my work is really supportive. And yeah, there's just some like sacrifices I've had to make, but I don't even feel that way because me and all my friends at school like do things together. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, like, oh, I'd have to give up social time, but like, I'm not. I'm being social with all my friends at school. Like we do stuff, like we'll study together, we'll go out to dinner. It's just been great. I'm just busier than I'm used to being, I guess. Yeah.
Which hard to imagine from from just a little bit I know about your background. How are you navigating the social aspect? That's tricky. I mean, for me, I do it very poorly. I'm not a very good friend. So
I
you guys
doubt
like
that.
going to dinner and stuff? That's great.
Yeah, sometimes we'll like go to dinner. I feel like there's like a few people I really connected with. You know, in our initial leadership class, we talk about different types of networkers. And I feel like I am 100% the type that is like the connector of different people. And I never realized that. Honestly, I was like, oh, I'm never going to be good at networking. And I get to Kellogg and I'm like talking to everybody. Yeah, I'm like friends with everybody. Everybody's friends with everybody else. It's like, it's great. And everybody's there to like get to know other people too. So I feel like it hasn't been a struggle. Like sometimes we'll just go to dinner. People will have parties at their houses. Like we'll go to the lake. I've been to a few festivals with some of my friends. I'm going to a concert tonight with one of my good friends from school. So, and also like two of my best friends live in Chicago from my undergrad. Like they're my friends for years and like they're integrated into my Kellogg group too.
That's so great. No, I love to hear that it has been so successful and just so seamless. That's wonderful. That's the answer you want. Has there been anything that shocked you in less than positive way?
Definitely. I wouldn't say I was super shocked, but the Kellogg part-time program is like probably 65 to 70% male. And that's something I notice. Like every single class I'm in, I'm like, oh, I'm one, I took business law over the summer. Amazing class. Highly recommend. But, I think one of my friends counted and it was like 80% male and 20% female. And I'm really outspoken. If you know me in class, you know that. Like I will call people out. I'll be like, hey, I don't think this, we need to consider about all these different things. Like, that has not been a surprise, but I'm actually surprised at how much it's like in my face sometimes. There are a lot of great examples of people who are also thinking about those things, but I feel like sometimes I have to push to get everybody to consider, different demographics. But I feel like I should be here. I don't feel out of place or anything, but I do notice like, oh, I am one of only a few women in my class, or I 100% notice. Yeah. I mean, also I'm queer, so I think that's like something I think about too, is just like being in like male dominated spaces. Like it's always something that's been on my mind. Mm-hmm. But like I said, like it hasn't been like a deterrent. I'm pushing against it. And I get like a bunch of my guy friends, they're also thinking about it. A lot of my classmates, like they're thinking about it too, but it's still like, I still feel like I'm one of a smaller group.
That's great awareness. And just, it's helpful to hear those things and hear those perspectives. So I appreciate that you're open with that less than positive experience. So, okay, let's wrap up with advice. What are you telling someone who's considering business school or someone who's interested in medicine? What advice do you have?
Take a chance on yourself. I would say like I kept taking chances on myself. I kept being like, yeah, I can move to another country. I can pick up my life there. I can get an MBA from one of the top business schools. I believe in myself and I have really high ambitions. And I think that that's okay. I don't feel guilty for like wanting to be ambitious. I care about everybody. I want to, I want there to be like equality, but it's like, no, I also want to be ambitious. Like I want to do a lot. I think that I've learned that it's okay to do that just by like, taking a chance on myself.
No, absolutely. I think ambition is, where would we be without ambition? That's absolutely, we should be ambitious. Share with the listeners, what are the goals? I'm curious.
Yeah. So, ultimately, like my goal would be to be the executive director or CEO of a large non-governmental organization, international, focused on like international health or domestic health. Yeah. I think, like I said earlier, I'm in these two classes, strategic challenges for emerging markets, which is like, I'm really interested in that. We know that. And then I'm also I'm a board scholar of the Golub Capital Board Fellows Program, which you have to apply to. And if you're accepted, you get matched with a nonprofit board and you're like an ex officio of a member of a nonprofit board in Chicago. So I feel like that is giving me like more of the experience I need to kind of reach that goal. So
I just wanted to hear you say it because you texted me that ambition. I just was reeling a little bit. Carolyn, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great to meet you. Great to hear some of your experiences, perspectives, and ambitions. So appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great. Yeah, for sure. Also, there's a former Olympian in my cohort you should consider.
There you go. We're with the connections.
Yeah, no, because I scrolled through your list and I was like, yeah, there's a few women, but not enough. So
Let's do it.
I'm gonna put that.